IM8 has been putting on a masterclass in the direct-to-consumer world, and in this video, we are going to do a full deep dive into their ad account, their ad strategy, their pre-landers, the pages that they run, their funnel, their emails, their SMS. Everything is going to be on display, and you and I are both going to learn something from this because clearly these people are running, in my opinion, the best operation in the entire world. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Jared Robinson. I run Creative Dawn, where we make thousands of ad creatives every single month for direct-to-consumer brands just like IM8. And I've been in the direct-to-consumer world for a very long time. I started out dropshipping when I was 13 years old. Then I worked internally at a fairly large brand. And then for the last 3 years, we have been running this agency where, like I said, we make thousands of ad creatives every single month. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing we're gonna look at is the ads library. They have over 1,300 active ads right now inside of their ad account. And I'm gonna just go in and watch some of the top ads, the oldest running that they have right now, as well as some of the ones with the highest impression count. Wow, so that screenshot said they had 1,300 active ads. Now you click into the ad library and they have 1,400. Their top ad, and the thing that I noticed most when I scrolled through before I started filming, was essentially all of their top ads are either this, which is just a whitelisted UGC type of ad creative, or something like this. Most all of their static ads that have the highest impression count are value-based or offer-based static ads. So we can see here, these are the top 10 ads based on impression count. And it's essentially, if it's a static ad, it's value-based or offer-based static ad. And I'm not gonna bore you with watching these whitelisted UGC review ads, but pretty much every single one of their UGC concepts are just product focused. They're just talking about the ingredients in the product. They're not really talking too much about any ideal outcomes or what the product is gonna do for you. They're really focused on just the product and the value. So the main lessons that I learned after going through their ads library was, the first thing is their volume is absolutely insane. To have 1,400 active ads at any given time in your ad account probably means that they've already tested tens of thousands of ads, probably north of 20,000 ads. And what takeaway you can have from that is test faster, test more volume. The next thing that I noticed that was pretty interesting is they do, I guess, technically have creative diversity, but for the most part, most of their ads are either whitelisted UGC or value-based static ads. Now, the ads do look very different, so they are achieving diversity, but for the most part, I was honestly kind of surprised to not see more diversity with that level of volume active in the ad account. But the thing that I learned most, and this is for the most part along the lines of what I see in the ad accounts that we work with, of what's working best right now, whitelisted UGC is amazing. And then the value-based static ads, obviously they're gonna work. The next thing is their messaging. This is the thing that I noticed that was probably the most interesting after doing a deep dive into their ads library. The first thing that I want to point out is their positioning in the industry is really just that they're better and they're premium. Their 90-day subscribe and save is almost $250 cash collected up front, and you can't do that without positioning yourself as a very premium option in the marketplace. The next thing I noticed in their messaging was they're very hardcore on their counter positioning to greens. I saw an ad in there where they said, just because it's green doesn't mean it's good. That's one of their top ads. It's also an organic piece of content that they ran. And they are very counter. They're very focused on establishing themselves as not just another greens brand, not just another hydration brand. It's all about their positioning. The next thing that I noticed was just the overwhelming amount of content that they produce around value-based or offer-based concepts. The next one, and this is kind of unique, and I've been seeing a lot of supplement brands do this now, is GLP-1 adjacent ad creatives. So what I mean by that is IM8 is essentially just an overall vitality or wellness product. Most of you out there, if you're running a supplement brand, can take some sort of angle similar to this, and they're essentially positioning themselves as something that you take alongside taking GLP-1s so that you can remain healthy or remain feeling good. And then the last lesson that I learned was product. They do so much education on really just what is inside of their product and what it does and how their ingredients are just extremely premium. So the next layer to their funnel is what people do after they click on the ads. A lot of times they do send people direct to product page, but they have a few quizzes and a few advertorial listicle style things where they're essentially just continuing to educate the consumer. And this is something that is extremely underutilized, and essentially every single brand we've ever worked with that has started incorporating pre-landers and building landing pages based on winning ads, it is an insane hack, and every single time a brand does that, their CAC drops significantly. So the things that I take away from this first landing page is it's all about 90 days. They're doing this because they want to increase their LTV and push people to the 90-day subscription. And most of these pages is really all about two things, and I'm gonna talk about that at the end, but it's all about social proof and science. Essentially, all these landing pages do is source some type of scientific study, or they show that they have all these doctors that they work with, and then it's just loads and loads and loads of social proof. Same thing here. It's pretty much a story that this guy, I don't know who this is, but I'm assuming it's a pretty large influencer. It's essentially a story in the beginning, and then they're just flooding you with tons and tons and tons of social proof. And then they have two different quizzes that they run traffic to. This first quiz is a little bit more basic and it's faster to get through. And then this is something really interesting that they did on the second quiz, is after every single question that they asked, they gave you like a fun fact. I thought that was pretty interesting. It's like, if you put your age is 30 to 39, the immediate pop-up would be people age 30 to 39 need this much of this thing on average, or something like that. So it's essentially just tons of supporting claims. This quiz is essentially the exact same questions as the other one, but the main difference is they're adding more science and more social proof as you go through the second quiz. So that's something interesting. I'm not sure if they're split testing that right now, but personally, after going through that, that made me want to incorporate that in some of the quiz funnels that we run. And then the last thing, all of those ads and all of those landing pages push back to this main landing page. And this is really, really where the magic happens. So right here above the fold, you'll notice that the first thing that you see is $72 in welcome gifts on us. And then immediately when you look at the subscribe and save portion, they're really pushing people to a pre-checked 90-day subscribe and save. And what I also found very, very interesting, and I haven't seen anybody else really talk about this, is IM8, one of the fastest growing brands in the world right now, is actually pushing to a low ticket info product, which was really, really interesting. If you click on this right here, this info, you can learn more about their program. They essentially have a 90-day info product program where they do live Q&As every single week with doctors. And this is something that's extremely under talked about, but also makes a ton of money. And as we scroll down the page, it's again going to be essentially what all of their landing pages are focused on. Two things, social proof and science. They do tons of work on just talking about the actual science behind their product. You can even see they even use the words, the science, whenever they're showing any of the things that they're showing that their product is going to do for the consumer. And then as you scroll down, again, it's tons of stuff in terms of value. And then again, the positioning against green. So if you notice, they are very, very, very consistent through the funnel. And this is something that I talk about a lot. Do not mistake creative diversity for just making creatives for any and every single person, right? What you'll notice about their funnel is from the ad level to the pages where they're doing a lot of consumption level to their main landing page where they're doing their actual selling, where they're actually collecting the cash, everything is extremely, extremely, extremely consistent on all three levels of marketing. And it's all about the positioning and messaging that comes from those ads on the top. So for you, this is the biggest takeaway that I don't see a whole lot of people talking about is if you crack a winning ad or a winning angle, it's extremely important that you take the messaging from that winning ad and angle, scale horizontally with loads of concepts, and then build your pages that you're, pushing the consumer down as they go down the funnel with the same messaging. And then as we continue to scroll down the page, it's again, just tons of science and social proof. So next we're gonna get into their email. We're gonna get into the welcome flow, the abandoned cart flow, as well as the SMS for abandoned cart. So the first thing that I noticed on the welcome flow, it's strictly value-based. It's all, 30% off free gifts, claim your free welcome kit, and then a little bit of social proof, but it's essentially the main thing that I see that they probably want you to look at is just this, and there's just tons of free value and social proof. Next, when you look at their abandoned cart flow, they are just hammering volume extremely hard. So within the first day of abandoning the cart, they're gonna hit you with 5 emails, which I think is really good. The first email, and this is really where they start talking about results. Most of their marketing on their landing pages, on their ads, is a little bit less about results. Here they start talking about see results in weeks. And if you notice, this is kind of interesting. In most of the marketing, they're talking about 90 days, but then once people abandon the cart, they really start to add some urgency in there, talking about see results in weeks. Again, tons of stuff about value propositions. What do you get that's free? And then as you scroll through all of these abandoned cart emails, you're just gonna notice that they're hammering volume and they're hammering just free stuff and social proof everywhere. Again, in the email after that, more free stuff. Again, just hammering on more free stuff to try to get the subscription. And then for the SMS, it's the exact same stuff. Just free, 30% off. Very, very much a value proposition SMS and email flow. So if I could break down this entire funnel and give you a couple of takeaways, from the very top of the funnel, they really focus on a lot of whitelisted UGC and a lot of value-based static ads. Towards the middle of the funnel and on their pages, it's just social proof and science everywhere. And then at the bottom of the funnel, they're just hammering volume and really focus on the value and savings. And overall, all the lessons that I learned from this funnel, I will go through now. The first thing that I think IM8 does extremely well is their positioning. They're very anti-greens. So greens is the villain, or the other cheap greens products is the villain. I think the reason that they're doing that is because Grunz and AG1 scaled so hard and essentially made a market here, and they're positioning as the counter or the other option against those two giants. The second thing I want to talk about in terms of their positioning is their premium aspect. They really have done a masterclass in branding by association. AG1 and Grunz, their marketing and their brand almost seems like it's for, soccer moms, right? That's really what they position themselves as. Whereas IM8 positions themselves as like a giant up on the top of the mountain, right? They talk about it being the best, they talk about it being premium, and they really position themselves with branding by association to people like David Beckham, all these Olympic athletes, all these doctors. So they really leaned hard into positioning, and they carved out a space where really only they live. The next thing that I think is really interesting is their unique mechanism. Everybody else is green and they're red. That's kind of interesting. And then also you have AG1, which is like a powder that comes in like a tub, I think. And then you have Grunz, which is a gummy. And then with IM8, you have stick packs. So it's extremely interesting that they position themselves totally anti those brands, and their mechanism that they made is very also, not the same as what the traditional leaders in this space were. The next thing, if we were making a video about IM8, it would be ridiculous to not mention the sheer amount of creative volume that they're doing. More than 1,000 active ads at all times. It's genuinely ridiculous. And they're doing it mostly, if not all, without AI. Most of their ads are by real people with UGC, and their static ads are not AI generated static ads. You can tell that they're actually done by a graphic designer. And then finally, I want to talk about the overarching business model that IM8 is running that is allowing them to do this, because it's important that you understand that they're essentially just playing the LTV to CAC game, and they're running their stuff on probably an extremely complex financial model, and they're probably not, actually, they're 100% not profitable on first purchase. They're likely what the industry standard is profitable on third purchase. So that's probably why they're pushing people to that 90-day subscription, and they're really hoping that they can get another rebill on that $200+ subscription every 90 days. Now, if you made it to the end of the video, hopefully you learned something from this. I would recommend going through the funnels of people just like this, people like Grunz, people like Marsmen. There is something happening in direct to consumer right now where people are scaling and growing quite a bit faster than they typically would. I made a video totally dedicated to the LTV to CAC game, or how these brands are actually running their companies like this. If you're interested in that, I'll have the editor link that somewhere on the screen. And then if you made it to the end of the video, comment the word GOAT or DTC Masterclass, because what IM8 is doing is truly impressive. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one.